Sean Kinn.
I'd like to welcome the three gentlemen from the National Anti-Bullying Coalition. Firstly, I'd like to ask some questions to Mr. Larkin. In relation to the Limerick School, and you brought that up, I think that's a fairly good example. I think what happened there was that the school principal suspended some of the students for their behaviour. I think that probably seems to me like a common sense way of dealing with a particular case. But you mentioned the question of the need for the DPP to issue guidelines to Garda stations so that somebody who has a complaint to make about cyberbullying can go to them. Has that been done in any other countries? Is there any other models we can copy in that respect? And the other question is to Mr. Dwyer. I mean, okay, you talked about technology solutions to cyberbullying. And we had other hearings here where we asked similar questions to other people. Is it possible for the ordinary citizen to be able to track or trace the source of a tweet which appears to be anonymous and which is either offensive or bullying? And, you know, is that technology available to the ordinary citizen? And the last question is you talked about the people who indulge in this kind of behaviour on the internet as cyber scum, and if maybe you could elaborate on that.
Thank you. I'm not aware of any other jurisdictions that where the DPP or equivalent has issued guidelines, but I guess I'm not a lawyer. I'm a technologist. I'm looking at it purely from a very basic infrastructure. What is available? What could be done? And could I take one small part of what Paul is looking at? You mentioned about tracking Twitter messages and stuff like that. Everything is there. Every tweet you put on, the vast majority of people who twit or have a Twitter message, their GPS location is actually physically recorded. There's so much information about the actual device, the serial number of the device, all recorded by the social network. They know everything about it. And that's why I'm suggesting that we should really look at the likes of Social Lawful Intercept or something similar. And as a quick fix, allow access to that information. They have everything stored. And that's a first step in the right direction to allow someone the recourse of the courts to build a case.
Sure, I'm happy to add to that. Again, as Colin says, in theory you can trace back if somebody has tweeted something and so on. But I think if you look at the legislation that's there at the moment, the non-fatal offences against the person act, that's pretty good legislation in relation to if somebody's cyber stalking me or somebody's hassling me online. I could use that to try and get a prosecution, or the guards could use that to take a case. The problem is that the subjectivity comes into this is when somebody goes to law enforcement or guard and says, somebody has put up a voting poll voting my child the whatever child of the class, the tallest, the smallest, the whatever, of the class. Is that a crime or is that an opinion? Right? And it's this subjectivity where the guards don't know where to turn next. Do they make a case? Do they bring it to the DPP and so on? So I think that guidance is definitely, there's a vacuum there. And we need to fill that in relation to giving some sort of guidance to guards and say, well, when is it opinion? Because we have to remember that the law enforcement system goes back to the appealing system of make a complaint is made, then it's investigated, has there been a crime, blah, blah, and it follows through that path. So yes, you can do lawful intercept. The reality is though, that's very expensive for organizations to be able to in a lot of cases, actually turn that material around. In fact, the majority of fraud departments of the telecommunication providers are now working on providing lawful interception requests for the Gardaí, because the Gardaí also don't have the resources. But what crime isn't cyber related these days? What crime doesn't involve a mobile phone or the internet? So every crime has a cyber element. So the guards are completely under-resourced to deal with that issue at the moment. That's a separate, obviously, area to go down. In relation to cyber scum, this is an area that we would refer to cover areas such as cyber stalkers. So we get a lot of issues around, for example, ex-girlfriends or ex-boyfriends who material is being put up online and making other adults' lives a misery. We see criminal gangs who are sexually outing other people as part of a way to blackmail them into providing information to help them facilitate a crime. Getting back to children in that relation, we have a huge element of this sort of element that will be bullying, and you'll see cyber predators shoulder to shoulder in the same environment. If you find cyber bullies, you find cyber predators, and by that I mean pedophiles. I mean people exchanging indecent imagery of children within those network groups and so on like that. And they're working on vulnerable kids. They'll find the vulnerable child. They will groom them, which is a seduction technique, in order to say, I see you're being bullied, I'll be your friend online. Before you know it, they're getting images of that child and so on like that. That's the nasty of it. That's how it actually works. So that's the murky, sinister world of what cyberscum is.
Can I just follow up one question? You did mention that you've had the Gardaí didn't have the resources to do this kind of work, and that they have to get outside, they have to go to somebody else to do the tracing and the tracking for them.
Yeah, what the guards will do, and the guards can obviously speak for themselves, but for what they can do is they have to go to, say, for example, a mobile telephone provider or an internet provider and say, at this time, we believe something happened. Can you give us the records to tell us what has actually happened here and so on like that? So then it's over to a civilian to go, and that's where it gets really murky. Should civilians be taking that information? What's the privacy issues around that, and so on like that? Or should they have something in place? I mean, and if we look, if we switch back to cyberscum there at the moment is, within Ireland, Interpol has a known database of known child pornography categorized. In the mid-1990s, there was only 4,000 images. There's now over 1 million images, right? In Ireland, in this jurisdiction, you can download that and you will not be blocked from downloading that, okay? You could travel up Northern Ireland, you go to UK, you cannot download it because it is blocked and it cannot be accessed and so on like that, right? But yet we can ban you downloading copyright music or copyright music in this jurisdiction, but we can't block you or stop you downloading known categorized child porn categorized by Interpol. So that in itself is a question of how we're protecting our children online.